All right, howdy everybody. Not sure what's going to happen today because it is, after all, what do they call that? Black Friday, right? Black Friday. So happy Black Friday. I hope you guys all had, those of you who are in the United States, I hope you all had a good Thanksgiving. I know Thanksgiving's weird this year because of that which shall not be named. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not afraid to talk about it. Yeah, any questions to get us started with? Nothing coming in yet. I'll play a little bit until we get some questions. Hello, Anthony. Happy day after Thanksgiving to you, too. Hello, Gabriel. Cannot see the video. I'm not sure why that would be. That's bizarre. I don't see anything different this time. Anthony, can you see me? Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know what to say. Let's see if. Hello, Neo. Austria, nice. Okay. Neo says that the video is coming through. All right. Any questions yet? You know, I had a. Well, I won't say that. I'm like reading this, forgetting that you guys are watching. So Gabriel says, "Hi, Anthony, no streaming here." I'm sad to hear that. I don't know. Anthony says, "Been working on a piece of music, and it is so many times." Yes, I think I know what you're saying. So Neo says, you talked about learning chords for jazz improvisation. Any tips on literature? I would say that the biggest thing. So let me tell you, and I know you've probably seen this before, and maybe this is for just make sure everyone is clear about how I do this. I believe in practicing the arpeggios, but I don't believe in doing them like spending a lot of time on it. I think it's just something that you need to know and that you need to revisit. There's stuff I don't do anymore because I don't think that it's as beneficial. So for example, this is what I was doing in high school, right? I would do the major arpeggios, up in half steps, and then continue them going up in half steps, but continue them ascending on the way back. I would do that, then to my lowest note, just like the tonalization studies, right? Then I would flip it and do backwards. Anyway, so like I said, I don't do those anymore. And I decided I would never be ashamed of not being able to do that, because that's a purely academic thing, and it doesn't really help us. It doesn't really help us in our jazz improv. That's not useful technique. So my approach today is more focused on the language. Yes, we want technique to play the arpeggios, but the amount of time I dedicate to that each day is about 3 minutes. So what we want is language that gives us those chord progressions. And I actually think that those other things are just a distraction. I really do. I think that other stuff is just a distraction. I've known many, many musicians who could play all that other stuff, and they couldn't play jazz to save their lives. Okay? That stuff doesn't help. So, tips for literature. Now, when you say literature, are you talking about books? I think the best book for anyone to start with is the Charlie Parker Omni book. Okay? Does that make sense? The Charlie Parker Omni book, and then any transcription stuff you can get. Now, there are other things other books you can buy. The problem I have with a lot of this stuff is that it's all based on analysis and not based on practical application. And I understand the academic approach to this, right? I understand they do the transcriptions and they analyze what the greats have done. And I think the concept is, if we do what it is that we discovered in the analysis, then we can be closer to where the greats are. And that is false logic. The greats don't even most of the time know that they're doing those things that you found in your analysis. That's not the path they took to get there. So the problem I have with some of the books that go into detail about the theory of what's happening is that, specifically the theory of what's happening in someone's improvised solo, right? The problem I have with that is that it tends to be more on the analytical side and much less on the practical side. I'm not saying thou shalt not read that stuff. Yes, you can read that stuff. That's not going to help you be a better player, not in the way that some of this stuff that I teach helps. Okay? And so doing transcriptions, reading transcriptions, studying transcriptions, that stuff helps. But when you look at, so let's use the bebop scale as an example, right? Now, I've seen the exact same pattern. I'm not sure who it is. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's Art Farmer. So where you have a lot of the jazz players playing stuff like that, right? That G to G flat to F to G. Right? That's a very, very, very common thing. But I think it's Art Farmer that he didn't do that as much as what he did and it's hard for me to do this because rhythmically it ends up in a different place. He'll do that same like half step thing between the A and the G. Right? And the way I see that, that's not a scale. That we haven't now created another species of scale here. I hope that makes sense. What he did was a different motif. And yes, you could extrapolate it and say, oh, if you put all these notes together, it makes a different kind of bebop scale. That's just not, that makes no sense on a practical side. I hope that makes sense, what I'm saying. Anyway, so yes, I recommend transcription books if you want to study books, but even better than that is just doing transcriptions yourself. Because that's valuable stuff right there, right? Now, I'm working on a way to share what I do in my lessons for the jazz stuff. That's the hardest thing for me to put in a package. That's the hardest thing for me because it's so, first of all, it's so complex. My approach to teaching jazz improvisation is complex. Second of all, I don't use the same exact system for every student. So it's hard to decide what goes in the book, what doesn't go in the book, what goes in the video, what doesn't go in the video. It's hard to do that. Anyway, Anthony says, I've been working on this music so many times I can almost play it without looking at it, sort of. And yeah, that's where we want to go. That's exactly where we want to go. You do it over and over. I don't think that you've learned a piece well enough until you get to where you start not liking it, right? I think you have to actually get so, what's that old saying? Familiarity breeds contempt, or something like that. Familiarity breeds contempt. And it's just as true for a piece of music. When you first heard the music, and I'm not saying you personally, Anthony, when you first heard the music, you were like, oh, that's beautiful, or oh, this, and oh, that. You were somehow attracted to that music. And it's just like relationships with people, girlfriends, boyfriends, work associates, and stuff like that. When you first meet them, it's easy to be infatuated with a piece of music, just like you're infatuated with a piece of, with a person, right? And I don't mean necessarily romantic infatuation, right? But the more you get to know that person, and in this case, since we're drawing a parallel, that piece of music, the more you find little tiny things about the personality of that piece that didn't stand out before, and maybe it might be a fingering, maybe it might be, whatever it is. But you start to, when you get so close to that kind of familiarity, you start to lose that infatuation. Now, this is where true love comes from, right? Infatuation is shallow. And so true love, even for stuff like this, true love is when you know all the flaws and not flaws, but things that you don't like, right? Anyway, but yes, that's how we want it to be, Anthony, and so congratulations on that. So good to have you here, Gabriel. I'm glad the video thing is working out now. Neo says, thanks for your answer. I hope that's the kind of answer that you were looking for. All right. Hello, Kenny. He says, hello, I've been hearing my tongue in my articulation Have you heard this happening? Yes, I have heard this happening. It might mean that you have infection in your ears or something. Or maybe you went swimming and you have water in your ears. So most likely, you have sinuses clogged up or something. Okay? Now, other than that, I don't know of this happening. But if you can hear your tongue, most likely it means that your ears are clogged up somehow. You might be starting to have a cold or something. Is that possible? Or, there's all different kinds of things that can clog up your ears. So that's what's happening. It happens in recordings. Oh, well, that's because that might be from the way you're wearing. Are you wearing headphones? Tell me about these recordings and I can help you better. What is the situation? Are you a high school student recording for Allstate or something? Or is this recording for band? Are you wearing headphones? Gabriel says, Eddie, what microphone do you use when you record and where do you put it? So, my microphone is an AKG. I want to say CS1000 or something like that. Let me go look real quick. Oh, C1000S. AKG C1000S. I think it's a $300 microphone. I got it for less than that. I bought it used. And I put it. Oh, yes, Gabriel says, because I tried with my iPhone and the sound was terrible. That's because the iPhone has technology in it is not meant for music. It's meant for speaking voice. And there's all kinds of technology in that environment, whatever you want to call it. There's technology in that environment that, and I mean software environment, right? It's not the hardware, the software that makes trumpet sound crummy, right? So one of the biggest things in there is noise reduction, right? And it thinks a lot of what we're doing is actually noise, right? So I'm gonna go do this because I want to give you. I know how you are, Gabriel. I know I think you told me you were an engineer or something like that. And I think you would appreciate actual numbers is what I'm saying. So I have a meter stick in here somewhere. I got a wooden one. I've got a metal one and a wooden one. Here's the wooden one. I'm going to measure the distance from the mic to where my seat is. And I'm going to say that the tip of the microphone, let me do this. I'll use a music stand to prop it. All right, so the microphone is a meter. I think it's a meter, right? Meter and a yard is about the same. We call these actually yardsticks, but I think this one's a meter stick. Oh, it's not a meter stick. So I think I'm about a meter away from the mic. I'm about a meter away from the mic. Now, let me tell you this. When I was doing recordings on built-in computers, I'm not making this up, I had to put, so if you can see the size of this room, right? So the room kind of has two parts, the smaller part that I'm in right now, and then it has the bigger part out there where I teach. I have this part set up so that I can just leave my video equipment up, right? So I used to stand on this side of the room with my computer on the other corner. I would stand in this corner with the computer on the other corner, and I would face away from the computer. That's the only way I could get a good sound on the computer's microphone. We're talking, I don't know how many meters that is. I'm going to guess about 15 meters. Okay, I'm thinking that's about 15 meters away from where my bell would be, and the bell is facing in the opposite direction. That's how I used to do it when I did not have real recording equipment. Okay. You know, I have a student who made region this year, and she thought she wouldn't make region because she had to record at her father's house, well, in her father's apartment, and it was too late at night, and she had to play all of the etudes really, really, really soft. And she's recording on her phone. I think that's part of the reason why she made it. And she's got, I think, second chair or something like that. Because she was playing soft enough that she was hoping that the neighbors wouldn't hear her in the apartment. All right, Kenny says, yes, recording for school, but no wearing headphones. It makes a duck sound. Now, I don't understand that. Does it only happen when you're recording? That's kind of weird. Okay, so here's what, if it's only happening when you're recording, then what you need to do is figure out what you're doing differently when you record. And here's the thing. You shouldn't be doing anything differently when you record, okay? There shouldn't be anything different. So are you putting, so here's something that happens commonly when you're recording, right? One thing that happens all the time is that we think that we have to put the mic a certain way, and that, you know, and if you don't have, so like for me, I played down. I've always played down. In fact, I had a revelation this week because I used to get bad comments when I was in high school about taking my elbow and sticking it into my rib cage. I was skinny as a stick back then. Skinny. So so it was like I would put my elbow into my rib cage and play like that. And you know what I figured out? And that was in the late 70s. And I'm only now figuring this out today. I think the reason I put my elbow in my shoulders, my shoulders, what am I saying? My elbow in my rib cage was because that put the instrument at exactly the right angle that I needed for playing. Because of my teeth being the way they are, that position was the right position for me. If I tried to put it up like this, the everything would be wrong. And I'm not saying that's exactly what's happening with you, but there's times when we think we have to put the bell a certain place. And that can put stress on different parts of your neck or whatever. See, I'm not into this playing at attention thing. Not at all. I sound like, well, I'm not going to say that, but I sound bad when I have to play at attention. And it's been my whole life. It has to do with the curvature of my neck. It has to do with my teeth. So my posture when I play, it has to be kind of crumpled up, or nothing flows right. And what I've learned is that everyone has their own thing. So like some people, they have to play like this. They have to play with it up like that, or they can't play at all. It's the same problem as what I'm having. Okay? So if this is only happening when you do your recordings, then something is wrong with that. You're doing something differently, and you should not be doing anything differently. Okay? Nothing should be different. And it took me a long time to learn this part of it too. I'll never forget. I'm going to tell you guys this story. I used to do a bunch of Tejano recordings. I guess about 8 of them. I'm on 8 famous Tejano recordings. I recorded with the Royal Jesters. I recorded with David Mares. I recorded with Little Joe. That's the only Grammy I'm on is Little Joe. I recorded with TC Jesters. Did I say that already? Anyway, I'm on a bunch of Tejano CDs. And to the point where when I used to do Tejano gigs, I would show up to the nightclub and they're playing albums that I was on at the nightclub. These aren't just albums that like the other albums that I've done. I'm on a lot of albums, right? But these aren't albums that were just like local artist types. These were albums that were being played on the radio, albums that were being played in the nightclubs and stuff like that. These were famous albums. And the guy that hires me for all those was not finished writing one of the arrangements, and he kept changing the arrangement, and it wasn't a hard piece. We only got through the introduction, right? And he couldn't make up his mind whether we were going to slur or we were going to tongue or this. That's what he was changing. But the notes it was marked double forte, and the notes were between G and high C. And we did it over and over again, and it wiped me out. It wiped me out to the point where I swelled up and I could not finish the session. And so the guy got real belligerent, and he told me, you know what, I'm going to have to call the big guns. And we had the same session a week later, and Lonnie Lelaine came in. Lonnie is in the Tejano Hall of Fame. And Lonnie comes in, and he's playing the same stuff that we tried to do a week earlier. And I'm playing second part now. And what I saw with Lonnie, so the guy, the producer would say, okay, let's do another take. And Lonnie would say, no, give us a second, man. Right? He would yell at the producer and say, man, you're killing me. Stop. And I wasn't. And it was like 30 minutes into that same song again when Lonnie himself, Mr. Big Gun, told him, dude, this is not playable. And this is what I learned finally by watching Lonnie in action, is that your comfort in the studio is your responsibility. If they tell you to play it and you're not ready to play again, you have to tell them no. And it's the same thing for when you're recording at home, right? You have to do everything in your power to make yourself comfortable enough to play the instrument. If you're getting those kind of weird sounds, then you haven't got there yet. Gabriel says, I tried the iPhone and after listening to it, decided to buy a cello and change instrument. Oh, no, don't do that. I'm sure the cello probably sounds better on, but then I bet the cello players wouldn't believe that, huh? So Anthony asks, Eddie, do I use the microphone with a computer or a recording machine? So let me show you what I've got. So there's my computer, my microphone. It's plugged into this. I don't know if you can see that. See the box? I just knocked over my coffee, I think. Okay, this box here goes into this computer. Okay, which is off right now because we just had a storm. So it's called a digital interface or something like that. So yes, it's a digital interface. I think you can get them for about $200. That's what I paid for that one, but you can't get that one for $200 anymore because they raised the price to something like some unreal thing like $1,500 or something like that. So that's very disappointing. I've been wanting to get a new one, but I'm not going to pay that kind of price, and I want something that comes with Pro Tools. So, and maybe that's why it costs so much, because of Pro Tools. I don't know. So yes, I go through a digital interface into my computer. And you know what? Something that you guys might want to keep in mind, I have been recording professionally since 1984. And recording before that since, I want to say, 1980. Just not professionally. So I have a lot of experience looking for that sound that I like to have. So there's Javier. Javier says, hello, Eddie. How are you? Good to see you. Yes, I'm good too. I hope you're doing well. Anthony says, I play at an angle. That's good. Okay. That's never aimed out straight, right? I hold like the young Russian. Okay. Sergei Nakarikov. Yep. I like his playing. He's a bit extreme. And well, that's one of the things that, I like to show the students, like the ones that their band directors tell them they have to change that position and all that. He's like this almost, right? And you can't tell me that he's doing it wrong, right? You can't tell me he's doing it wrong. Neo says, I have a protruding lower tooth and my lower lip is constantly swollen. Switch to modular embouchure to relieve the pressure. Any thoughts on that? So I think our entire career is spent looking for our best embouchure. So I have the modular book, the one that Carlton Macbeth publishes. I don't know that there is an embouchure related to that. I don't know, but I don't have any problem trying stuff until you find what works for you. I don't know so much like calling it. Here's what I don't, let me tell you what I don't like. And this is an opinion I formed more in the 90s when I first learned that people were doing this. There's people that think that embouchures are like items in a catalog, right? And you can pick that embouchure, you can pick that embouchure, or you pick that embouchure, or you can pick that embouchure. And I think that's ludicrous. What we should be doing, and I know maybe part of this is semantics, right? Part of this is just the way it's being said and being misunderstood. I understand that. But from the way I'm reading it, you can't just pick an embouchure and use that. What we should be doing is looking for our most natural embouchure. That's what we should be doing. And if trying something that Maggio did differently so that it can help you, then by all means, I say go for it, right? Everyone has a different structure here. And if you can find something that helps you, find that structure for you, right? That's something that works for you. And it just happens to line up with what maybe some people call the Maggio embouchure, then I say go for it. Now, let me tell you, Javier says that embouchure trademark thing is so strange. You can't register human movement or gestures. I don't quite understand. I think it's strange too, but I don't understand your second question. So let me give you a quick review, summary of how I approach finding the most natural embouchure. I think that first, what you should do is lip buzz, right? And I do this on a daily basis. When you can buzz and get a halfway decent sound, and what I mean by halfway decent sound is it doesn't sound like, right? We don't want that. We want something that at least sounds steady. Right? When you can do that, now you have something that at least works. The next step on that is finding a mouthpiece position that works with that. And I like to do this mouthpiece placement thing. And I have to do this wiggling thing because I got to get it underneath the whiskers. Sorry about that. Normally, without the whiskers, I just put it on. And I do that. Now, if there's a student that's having really serious embouchure problems, that's the first step we take. Do the mouthpiece buzz, and then place the mouthpiece on the buzz. And then we'll do, without the horn, we'll do mouthpiece buzzing. Right? We're going to do moving around on the mouthpiece. And then from that, we're going to play on the horn. And the thing is, the horn needs to be in the same angle as what the mouthpiece was when you were doing with the mouthpiece. So if you're pointing the mouthpiece up like this, then the horn should be up like that. If you're pointing the mouthpiece when you play down like I do, then the horn should be down like I do. Okay? I hope that makes sense. That's how I find, with every student, their most natural embouchure. You know, I think it's a testament towards the strength of my teaching for embouchures, that my students, when they come to me as beginners, they know that nobody's touched them before, right? They come to me as beginners, and those students never have embouchure problems, ever. Because they started with what I just showed you, and they find their most natural embouchure from the beginning. And they don't have bad habits to like fall back on. So I hope that makes sense. Neil says, Maggio embouchure is something that came naturally to me. The tooth thing was just something that I noticed recently. So yeah, I see. That's what I'm saying. If you read about an embouchure and say, "Oh, let me try that," and you find, "Ooh, that's like automatically you're sounding better." I'm all in favor of that. And what I'm not in favor of is trying different embouchures, like it's a catalog. Does that make sense? Um, because there are people that do that. They try the Stevens embouchure. They try the I forget all those different names, but they have like this list of embouchures, and I just don't think it works like that. I don't, I think you would have to have perfect teeth to be able to just go through all of that and try all of them. Well, and that would be kind of dumb because the people who got those embouchures going didn't have perfect teeth. The reason they did all that was because there was something different about their face, or otherwise they wouldn't have needed a different embouchure, right? So that's what I have a problem with. I don't have a problem with what you're saying. Neil says you can't register, but it helps a lot talking about it if it has a name. That's true. I understand the concept of giving stuff titles. I understand that. That's one of the flaws in the way my mind works, is I don't do enough of that. It's true brass players are looking to speak about embouchure when they meet. I met a female French or maybe English horn player, rolled her eyes about how long it took to develop hers. Gabrielle says the thing is rolling in or rolling out lips. So the rolling out and the rolling in is going to produce different tones, because when you roll out, you're getting more of the fleshy part. So I had I got to work with, I never was his student technically, but there's a Belgiumese, do you call it Belgiumese? I don't know. Someone from Belgium, a hornist, famous hornist, Francis Orville. He does that Einsetzen, where the lip goes like that, right? Where you play with the bottom lip rolled out so that all that mucous membrane is what's vibrating instead of the skin. Now this is horn, right? This and that clearly is a different kind of embouchure, right? That's a different thing than what we're talking about. I can't play like that anymore. I used to be able to do that. Javier says, I like the dizzy embouchure. It resembles a blowfish. You're welcome, Neil. I hope that makes sense. He says, yes, it makes sense. Gabriel says, I tend to roll out going higher. So this I don't understand. I've read through the Maggio book, even did some of the exercises. I don't know what you guys mean by a Maggio embouchure. I have it here somewhere. Actually, I had two books. I had one that had the chimpanzee on the cover. I can't find it now. It's in here somewhere. So this is why, if you guys look at my daily routine books and all of that, I've written a bunch of physical books, right? None of them tell you what to do with your lips or with your teeth or with your tongue or any of that stuff, except for in a general sense, right? And the reason I leave all that open is because I know that different people need different physical settings, whatever you want to call it. Now, this is This goes back to that academic thing that I was talking about. When you take a step back and look at how academia operates in music, right? They first analyze what the greats have done. It's the same thing as what I was saying about the jazz. They first analyze what the greats have done, and then they say, let me do that. And they don't look at the process of how that great got there in the first place, which I think is actually kind of offensive. It's kind of insulting. It's really very low-level, knee-jerk thinking. It really is. So we tend to almost praise academia for the stuff that they've done. But this, what I'm talking about, this pattern that I keep observing, is the greatest flaw of academia in music. It doesn't work that way. You can't say the same thing for composition, right? Same thing for composition. You can't say that, okay, well, if you put these notes together this way, it's just like that composer. You have to look at the process that the composer used to get there. And it's the same thing with this embouchure thing. People want to afterwards look at what did somebody do? And they try to recreate what that person did without looking at the steps that led to that. You know, Maggio, I think, is the one who slipped on the ice. Is he the one that slipped on the ice and bashed his face out? All his teeth were gone and the lips were shredded, right? How can you just look at the embouchure itself and not take that into account? I think it was Maggio. So I think, so let me, don't get me wrong. I am not anti-Maggio. I'm anti-Carlton Macbeth. Carlton Macbeth and I have gotten into many arguments in the past. He's actually a belligerent man who, he's one of those zealots that I talk about sometimes. If he's passed away, I apologize. I don't like speaking badly of the dead. I don't know if Carlton Macbeth is still alive or not. Let me look real quick on here. So I don't know if you guys know this. Carlton Macbeth is the person who sells the Maggio method book. It's not a Maggio book. It's a Carlton Macbeth book. Oh, looks like he might still be live, I think. But he's said and done some belligerent things to me in the past. That doesn't mean I don't learn from the book. I have the book, I studied the book, and it's tucked away in here as part of my overall philosophy. Okay? But you have to put it in context. And I'm not saying so let's get back to what I'm saying. So Neo found something that works for him. I say hallelujah. That's what we're looking for, right? I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. I don't know why I'm going on about this. It's just maybe because I've been heard to say stuff like this in the past. I don't know. And maybe I'm just trying to justify what I'm saying, and I shouldn't actually be doing that. So Javier says Maggio is the kissing embouchure, I guess. And Gabriel says, yes, kissing is the right word, but I did it naturally since the beginning. Never heard Maggio. See, that's what I'm talking about. That's Gabriel saying that. I did it naturally since the beginning. Never heard Maggio before. That's what I'm talking about. You see, and Gabriel, if you came into my lesson and you play that way, I would not be trying to fix it. I would be trying to help you make that work and get you where you want to go. I hope that makes sense. But you're finding what works most naturally for you. And the fact that you can say, oh, it's similar to, you know what it's like for me? I was never a student of any, but, well, okay, I take it back. My last teacher was a student of Chikowitz, Vincent Chikowitz. Okay, but he was also a student of Vacchiano. And so, yes, he was a very well-connected teacher. But what I was going to say is that I have no direct connection to the Song and Wind school. But the more I read about Song and Wind, the more it's not so much that Song and Wind told me to teach that way. I just always knew that was a natural way to teach. And it's the same thing as what you're saying here with your embouchure. And so now, because I know what Song and Wind is, I can go back to that, and if I know that the person I'm talking to knows what Song and Wind is, I can tell them that the way I teach is a lot like Song and Wind, right? And for those of you who don't know about this, Song and Wind is what they started calling the Chicago School. When I first got into college, we called it Chicago School, and then Arnold Jacobs put out a book called Song and Wind. I think that's how this all happened. And that pretty much embodied the Chicago school approach. So now that school is not called Chicago School anymore; it's called Song and Wind School. So, yeah, I teach like that. Now I didn't get it from them, and that's just like what I'm saying about Gabriel. Anyway, Javier says, in my country they have this saying, shorter than a husband kiss. Shorter than a husband kiss. Oh my. I'm sorry, Javier, I don't remember where you're from. Is it Chile? I know it's one of those countries down there. Chile, I think. It's either Chile or I'm almost certain you said you were from Chile. Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, that's funny. Anthony says, yes, some of the books tell you to blow naturally. Clark Terry, remember him? Yes, he's dead too. Well, he on a video shows that he rolls his top lip, rolls in his top lip. That makes sense. You know, he was a different kind of player. In all respects, he was very different. So Gabriel says, I tried to roll in, but the sound is very thin. And that's when I first changed my embouchure. That was the most saddening part for me, because before I changed my embouchure, I had a beautiful fat sound. And it was because I was playing like this. Right? It sounds like a Wookiee. I had a very beautiful dark sound. And when I switched embouchures, it became more almost angelic sounding, but not dark and beautiful like the other the other thing. And there were times when I actually missed my old sound. Here's the thing, though. As I got older, I learned how to control it, and I can get almost that same sound now. So I think Gabriel says, why did I change? Well, I don't know if I've told you guys this before. Playing the other way hurt. And I mean, it hurt bad. I remember I was in university, and the Christmas break came, and I was so miserable that I decided I was not going to play trumpet anymore. You might have read about this story, or you might have heard me talk about it before. I quit. I had no intention of ever playing. I was not going to go back to school again, because that's why I was in school, was to play my trumpet. I quit. I went out of town. And hello, Papa Walker, Mr. Walker. I went out of town, came back 2 weeks later, and there was a message on my machine that said that a mutual friend his son had died. And I'm saying my trumpet was literally in the closet. I wasn't going to take the trumpet out ever again. I was done with it because it hurt. I'm saying serious pain. My teeth were loose. My lips had a permanent purple mark on them. I had constant, almost migraines. I don't think I've ever had a real migraine, but the headaches were bad. And all of this, I would have been able to endure all of that if it wasn't for the fact that my playing was getting worse too. And when I changed my embouchure, it was, I didn't want to jump ahead. Okay, so my trumpet is in the closet. I get home, I get this message. They're having a jam session benefit for this guy who lost his son, to help pay for funeral expenses and stuff like that. And I said to myself, I'm not playing the trumpet anymore, but if I don't go to this, it would just be wrong. So I took my horn. I did not even warm up. I was told back then you had to warm up or you're going to sound terrible. I didn't even warm up. And when I got to the jam session, I just, I was in a bad mood because here I am. I'm quitting the horn. I just couldn't just drop people like that, right? And not do their benefit. I started playing that first song, and it was the best sound I had ever had in my whole career. And I was like, where did that come from? I was taught that for every day you took off, it would take 2 days to get back. So I was off for 2 weeks. It should have been a whole month before I got back to where I was. And where I was in a very bad place. And at that point, I realized, I've been misled about how all this stuff works. And I started a private experiment that ended up being my first book. I went straight to lip buzz. I wanted to see, because I heard people talking about lip buzz. And when I did lip buzz, it sounded like that. It was awful. And I knew I couldn't play trumpet like that. So, and it just made sense to me, right? I'm an INTP. That's how I think. I think through this stuff. It made sense to me that if I didn't get that right, none of the rest of it was going to work. So I spent about 2 weeks trying to perfect the lip buzz. And when I got the lip buzz going, I started putting the mouthpiece on there, on that lip buzz embouchure. In those days, I used to call it the lip buzz embouchure. Okay? That lip buzz embouchure, I wanted everything to be the same. And it wasn't the same as how I used to play. And I built my playing back up from that every step. And then what happened? After that, I thought I was going to go into the Army, and I thought by the time I got playing well again, which took about a year, actually I say about a year, I had a very big performance 3 months later that went actually pretty well. The rehearsals did not go well. The conductor accused me of trying to sabotage his concert. Because I at one point I couldn't play the old way and I couldn't play the new way. I was like stuck in between two embouchures, and I in the rehearsals it was just awful. It was awful, and I didn't tell them I was making an embouchure change. So he thought I was doing it deliberately. But I was a soloist in that concert. I played a bunch of solos on that concert, and it went that was my first performance on the new embouchure. But yeah, it took me about a year to get back to where I felt like I was playing well again. And then I thought I was going to the Army. So I wrote down all the steps that I wanted to use to get back in from boot camp. After boot camp, I wanted to get back onto my horn. And if it wasn't for that, if it wasn't for the boot camp, I think all of this stuff would have gotten forgotten. It would have been forgotten. But I had to organize my thoughts so that when I got back out of boot camp, I could step back into what I was doing. Javier says, that's the story that made me start using your method and never look back. Yeah, I tell that story quite often, I guess. You guys are funny. Javier says, Papa Walker, this has nothing to do with Trumpet or the Q and A, but I have to ask, are you going to visit all of us this Christmas despite COVID-19? And I think he's talking about your picture. And Papa Walker says, Javier, if I did, you wouldn't recognize me. I had an oops when trimming one day. No more beard. Eddie will have to take the visit. Oh, man. So Gabriel says, that's very long. I'll definitely buy that cello. Oh, man. No, do you know what? Let me tell you this, Gabriel. I don't think I would have changed my embouchure at all if I hadn't pushed so hard. I was doing so many hours of playing every day. I was, at that time, I was in 12 ensembles, 12, that met at least once a week. I was in the El Paso Symphony. I was in the UTEP Orchestra. I was in a UTEP Wind Ensemble. UTEP is the University of Texas at El Paso. I was in the UTEP Jazz Band. I had my own brass quintet. I was in the UTEP chamber brass ensemble. I was in 12 different ensembles, and I say that met at least once a week. Some of those met 5 times a week, like the the wind ensemble met 5 times a week. The jazz band met 5 times a week. Um, and I was trying to practice at least 4 hours a day. If it hadn't been for that, I don't think I would have ever needed to change my embouchure. And now I'm glad that all of this happened. I really am glad that all this happened because I did end up doing something that has, in the long run, blessed a lot of people. Like Javier says here, he's never looked back. And so I don't have any regrets. Don't get me wrong. But the more I work with students that have similar problems like I used to have back then, most of those problems are from not resting. It's not from the shape of their embouchure. It's from not resting. And if I had known about the resting thing, I don't think I would have ever thought to change my embouchure. Gabriel says, I understand, Eddie, you are a professional player while I play for my dogs only. I try to improve, and thanks to you, I have some results. Well, thank you. I don't know if it's worth changing the roll position of the lips. You know what? If you want, you can send me a picture or a video of you playing, and I'll tell you what I think. I'm not going to tell you without seeing you. But yeah, I think there's ways to make all of those different ways of playing work. And it has to do. That's, by the way, why the one range book is the way it is, right? The one range book doesn't tell you do this with your lips, do that with your lips. The one range book tells you that your subconscious mind can figure it out for you. You don't even have to know why it's working. Your subconscious mind can help you get that better range if you follow these. Basically, what the one range does is create an environment. The one range book creates an environment for your mind to flourish in, your subconscious mind. And you don't have to know. You don't have to know how much of this to do and how much of that to do. You know, before I learned about using the tongue arch to play the high notes, I was already doing that. Nobody told me to do that. It was only later that I read about people who do that, and I thought, wait, I'm already doing that. And I think the subconscious mind works all that stuff out. You know? I think that's all stuff that the subconscious mind, when you put yourself in that environment, it's all stuff that the subconscious mind puts the pieces together for you. You don't have to know consciously what's going on. So Gabriel says, yes, that was in one range. That's right. Cornet Blower says, hi, everybody. Howdy, Cornet Blower. We're about to finish here. So, all right. Any other questions before I sign off? Maybe Cornet Blower has a quick question. It's stormy here, and I haven't done any exercise yet because I told you guys before I exercise outside. I do have an inside bike, one of those exercise bikes inside the house. Very nice bike. And I'll probably sit on that right now to get my exercise done. I've been mixing it up, half cardio and half weightlifting. So, and I'm kind of due on cardio right now. So, So that's probably what I'll do after this. A bit more about one range book. So let me tell you, the first thing I'd say about one range book is that there's no exercises in it. It's just concepts. Okay. I had a friend that I work with, right? And he said, bring your range book. And I brought the range book. I handed it to him at the gig. He flipped through the pages, saw that there was no exercises, and handed it right back. So, and I don't like to feel like I'm ripping people off with my stuff, right? And I want people to know that there's no exercises. This is not a normal range book. Okay? This is not like any other range book that's out there. Not that I know of. And that's why the subtitle is a trumpet trop strategy guide. Right? Oh, bye, Gabriel. I'm glad you were able to hang out with us. Well, no, it's a strategy. It actually really is a strategy. The book, so Cornet Blower asks, just your experience. Now, it's based on my experience. Thank you, Anthony. Thanks for hanging out. So it's based on my experience, but what the book is the first half of the book describes the concepts behind the strategy. The second half of the book outlines the strategy, and it outlines it in great detail. Now, it's hypothetical detail because your schedule might not allow it to be that way. And by the way, that's mostly of what it is. It's what you do in what part of your schedule. Okay? So that's what the book is. If you follow that, if you follow the one range schedule, doing certain things at certain times of your day, it will put your mental, your psychological mind in a place, your subconscious mind in a place where a lot of that range stuff will just get worked out. So Neo says, thanks for your one range and daily routine book. Helped me a lot already. Wonderful. Thanks, you. I'm glad to hear that. Gabriel says, thanks for everything. Eddie, have a nice weekend. Goodbye, friends. Javier says ×2. Anthony says, thank you, Eddie. Enjoy your weekend. Thank you. I hope you have a great. And Gabriel says, one range is strategic and it contains a lot of very clever and practical suggestions. Thanks you. That's perfect. Gabriel, thank you. Yes, Cornet Blower, it is an ebook. It can be sold. I mean, you can get it at Kindle. You can get it on all of those places. Javier says, good to see you. Eddie, thanks for everything. Have a great weekend. And please use the saying sometimes. Okay, I'll try to use that saying. Okay. All right. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for hanging out with me. God bless you. All right. See you. Bye.